Hey guys, it's Cayley. I'm back with another what sold from last week video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over some sales that I had on eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. If you like these kinds of videos, make sure to subscribe. I do them every single week in order to share with the reseller community what is selling well for me, in hopes that you too might be able to study what's selling quickly. I'll talk about how long things took to sell for, why I picked them up in the first place, and maybe you'll be able to find them in your local area. Before we dive in, I wanted to take another moment to talk about one of my favorite shipping supplies companies, because almost all of the items that I'm going to show you in today's video, I shipped out in one of these poly mailers. I buy almost all of my poly mailers from GROPack. GROPack is an online shipping supplies company. On their website, you have really simple options. You just pick what kind of mailer you want. I almost always choose poly mailer. You choose your size. I almost always do the 10 by 13s, your color, and then your quantity. And the more you buy, the more you save. They have some of the cheapest prices that I've ever seen on poly mailers, and so that's why I choose them to buy in bulk and ship out most of my items in these bags. I just did a little restock. They have several different colors, but mine are the more muted ones, with this beige one being my favorite. If you need new poly mailers, this can be a great affordable option, especially if you're buying in bulk. I always forget this until the end, but they also have free shipping on all orders within the US. There's a link and coupon code down below for a discount off of your first purchase, which will be on top of their already low prices. Now let's get back into the sales. All right, guys, so I decided that I wanted to start doing sales from different angles for 2026. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the best information that I possibly can to make the greatest impact in your businesses. And so for 2026, I'm thinking of switching up my sales reports, thinking of kind of categorizing some of the sales, talking at them from a different angle. And in today's video, I actually pulled most all of the items that sold in less than 2 weeks for me this past week. So I had many more sales, but just wanted to pull the actual ones that flip super quickly and really do a deep dive into why I picked each one of them up, why I think they sold so quickly. And I'm also going to tell you my order earnings after all of the fees, shipping, and all of that per item. But just to make things easy for myself, I went ahead and grabbed the Insights sales report on Nifty. I am transitioning my bookkeeping over to Nifty. I'm not quite there yet, but as I mentioned, that's my plan for 2026. So this is a quick dashboard look at those dates, which is just the information that Nifty has pulled from the sales themselves. So here is a quick glance at what happened last week. Notably, tops were my best-selling category, and I had a pretty high average sale price on eBay at close to $40. And one thing I do love about Nifty is because it makes things easy and automatically gathers a lot of the data for me, it's super easy to be able to now tell you guys how long something took to sell. So for instance, these are part of my sales pages, and here are the days listed for each of those items. All right, next, let's dive into some of the individual sales, starting with the fastest ones. And again, I'll have different categories for future videos, but today I thought we would focus on the ones that sold the quickest, because typically those are the ones that are the bolos. And I think it'll be really surprising to you. Things that flip quickly are not always designer things. They're not always high priced, but they are things that you can rely on to move quickly in your store, which is ultimately the goal for all resellers. We want to churn items over quickly so we can keep that cash flow going. So this is my fastest selling item from last week. I think it actually sold in like a couple hours of being listed. This is a vintage item, and this is in general, a pretty decent category to look for in vintage stuff, which are fur trim things. Fur tends to add a ton of value. And this one, although it was shorter length and the fur wasn't everywhere, it was also in a brand that can be sought after in the Y2K community, which is XOXO. This was real leather and suede. It had fur trim. And if you know anything about Y2K, you know that this is a pretty popular piece on top of the great brand. So with it being real leather, and a great brand. I priced this one super high. One of my sourcers actually picked this up and priced this, I think, at around $35 just because they didn't know that the brand was sought after. So before it actually went live, I went ahead and edited the price, bumped it up to $95, and was expecting to get offers, but it actually sold immediately at my full asking price. And so it was a super, super quick flip. This one, I use keywords such as Phoebe, as in Phoebe Buffet from Friends, brats, and then also 90s, because it is, although it's Y2K, it also could fall into the 90s aesthetic as well. This only took 0 days to sell after being listed. So again, this sold within just a couple of hours. I'm so glad I caught it before it went active and was able to bump that price up. So this sold for full asking price of $95 on Depop. I've mentioned before on Depop, fees are super, super low, even if you boost on Depop. And so my order earnings, which would be before cost of goods, I get most of my stuff from the bins, which is an average of $1.50. After my order earnings, but before cost of goods, I made an earnings of $82.80, which is awesome out of 95. Okay, next up, the second quickest one to sell. This one also took 0 days to sell, so sold the same day, is a completely unbranded item. And this is why I like pulling these, because we can think all day long what are quick selling items, but until we actually see the data and we actually comb through how things are performing in our store, we might be surprised at what the quick selling items actually are. And I know pulling it this way was eye-opening to me. So I had a lot of bread and butter, but super quick style-based pieces. So completely unbranded. I've mentioned this before, but I sell a ton of these sheer tops. They can be leaned into so many categories or aesthetics, depending on the colorway, the shape, all of that. This one's a pretty classic one for what I pick up at the bins. I use keywords such as fairy grunge, lace, goth, and sheer. And I listed this one at $30. I accepted an offer of $22 and had an order earnings of $20.63 on this item. Next up is Poshmark. As you guys follow along this video, something else I took away by pulling sales this way, which again, I don't normally pull it this way, is I noticed that my quickest selling items all came from Depop and Poshmark. There are some eBay sprinkled in, but majority of them came from Depop and Poshmark, which I thought was really cool. So Poshmark, I sold this We the Free item. I've been selling a lot of We the Free shackets. So anytime you see a Free People shacket style, definitely take a look further into the exact style name. This one was called the Izzy Cargo Flannel, and this one was also a size extra large, so that's going to increase the value. Both of those things, a substantial piece plus a larger size. I would have looked into this no matter what, but it ended up being a really great piece. I ended up selling this on Poshmark for $35, and my order earnings was $28. Next up, another unbranded sheer top. Again, can lead this into so many different ways depending on the overall look of it. This one was more fairy, whimsy goth, even festival. We even included like bloomcore, whimsical, and herbalist on this one. This sold for my expected price of $25, and I made $20 in order earnings on Poshmark. This one also sold the exact same day that I got it listed. Next up, moving into some items that took a little longer to sell. This one took 1 day to sell. I mentioned last week I've been selling a ton of consignment items. I have a couple of people who have consigned with us. It's something new that we're doing. So my cost of goods on these items is $0. I did not pay anything to get them. However, when they do sell, I split the earnings with the consigner. And so this one, $0 cost of goods, which is really exciting. You'll see quite a few consignment pieces that have been selling this past week. So this is a newer brand to me. It's called MAP with 2 A's. This is a cycling jersey that apparently is very highly sought after because, again, it took 1 day to sell. This ended up selling for $50 on Poshmark, and order earnings was $40. Again, this sold in just one day, especially moving into spring. People are going to be picking up cycling gear, and I definitely think it is an overlooked category. Cycling shorts, cycling pants, jerseys like this, all of it. Anytime I come across them, I usually look them up because there are a lot of higher end brands that if you don't do a deep dive on cycling, you're probably passing right over, and a lot of them sell for around this $50 mark. Okay, next up, another one that sold on Depop. This one took 2 days to sell. This one I had listed for $40. It's an Eileen Fisher merino wool tunic sweater in a size large. Eileen Fisher is still one of my best-selling brands. I do love finding it and getting it. I try to stick to better materials, better sizes, and this was a great piece overall. I listed this for $40. It sold on an offer for $30, and my order earnings was $25.90, and my cost of goods on this was also $0. This came from donations. I've also mentioned that we have been getting free donations from our community. Most of the stuff we do not end up listing. It's just not part of, it doesn't fit our business model. Most of it goes into a free clothing giveaway that we do for our community. But some things are really good, like this piece, and so $0 cost of goods. Next up, another consignment piece. This one sold in 2 days on Depop. This is the brand Save the Queen. This is a brand that I would memorize. Not everything in this brand is going to flip quickly, but it is a made in Italy brand, and this particular piece really falls into that artsy Y2K category that people are looking for. I'm thinking about like Jean-Paul Gaultier looking stuff. This really reminds me of that, and so this brand Save the Queen often has pieces that have that kind of dupe effect, and so it can be a good one to look for, but again, not everything. This one got a lot of attention and again sold in just 2 days for $110. After Depop took their fees and shipping, I was left with $96.86. Anytime you see something vintage with a unique artsy print like this, it's got to have an it factor. It can't be anything, and it does need to look younger, but I flipped a lot of stuff like this even in lesser known brands. Okay, another quick flip. This is an interesting story on this. These are a pair of dingo boots. And the reason I even looked these up was I usually look up like pretty much all high-end looking leather boots, regardless of brand. And I also look up Western style boots, but this one had the harness. And harness, I've noticed, are a more unique factor to find on any pair of boot, whether it's Western or biker or whatever it is. And so anytime I see harness boots, that's an indicator to me to look things up because it significantly can increase the value and the sell-through rate. So these ones, as you can see, had a lot of wear on the leather, but because of that harness detail, I looked it up. I do not know what happened, but the person that listed these, one of my listers at the time, accidentally listed them as men's. They sold super quickly because of that. Harness boots perform better in men's. However, once the buyer received them, they realized they were actually women. So we got the item back and relisted with the correct information, and they sold again super quickly after that. These ones only took 5 days after they were returned and relisted, and they sold for a full asking price of $40. After eBay took all of their fees, shipping, and all of that, I was left with order earnings of $31.06. And because I know you guys are going to ask, on eBay, I charge a buyer paid calculated shipping, and I do not extend my commercial discount to my buyers. So usually my buyer is paying retail prices for shipping. I'm only paying the commercial rate, which means I'm usually making money on the shipping label, which is sometimes why my order earnings are a little bit more net profits than maybe some of you. So if you didn't know, you can turn that off or turn it on and extend it to your customer. It's whatever you want to do. You can find that in your shipping preferences under your account settings. I choose not to, and I use the difference that I make off of it as earnings and to cover shipping supplies and things like that. So that's why. Okay. Next up, this was another really quick surprising flip. This American Eagle tank top only took 5 days to sell. This was a Y2K style. However, it was actually from 2010. I keep up with a lot of blogs, articles, social media, Google Trends, platform sold, all of it. And prediction, which do not always translate to the resale community, but prediction that I've seen for the last year is that we're going to move into a 2010 style. So instead of 2000 to 2010, it'll be 2010 to 2020 style. And that's like the next cycle that's going to roll around. I don't know if that's actually true because Y2K is still so popular, but I'm testing out a couple pieces just to see. This one still had a Y2K style, but I did date it for 2010 and it sold very quickly. So that was interesting. I listed this for $29.88, so $30. It did sell for my full asking price. And after all of the fees and shipping, I was left with $23.56. I do have really good luck with Y2K style American Eagle tank tops, especially when they have extra details like this lace trim, the bow, and this neutral color. I included keywords, like I said, Y2K, 2010, lace trim, bow, and coquette. All right, here was another Depop sale and also a consignment piece, so $0 cost of goods on this. This is a newer brand to me. It is a designer brand called, I think, La Academy, Los Angeles. This one was new with tags. It was a beautiful rayon, longer length dress, and honestly, even without that brand name, the style is really good on this, especially as we move into spring. I'm still looking for these baby doll milkmaid longer length flowy dresses. They perform extremely well for me. And because this one was black, it could also lean into a ton of different aesthetics. I listed this one for $60 on Depop. This ended up selling on an offer for $48, which is right around where I expected to sell on any platform. And my order earnings were $45.75. And again, this was a consignment piece, so I'll split that earnings with my, is it consigner or consignee? I think I'm the consigner, the consignee. Okay, next up, another super quick flip. This one's actually more sell-through rate brand based. This is a sale on eBay. This is a Tommy Bahama shirt. And anytime I see Tommy Bahama with a specific style name, such as this one, it says Sarasota Stretch. I always look that up because it tends to be a higher sell-through rate item. Tommy Bahama isn't really something that sells well for me in fall and winter. However, since this had that style, it was longer sleeve, I could tell it was a more substantial piece, and it was a size large, I went ahead and looked up and it had a pretty decent sell-through rate. This item did sell in a bundle and it only took 10 days to sell for my full asking price of $24.88. So yeah, more bread and butter. But again, if you see Tommy Bahama with a specific style name, I would just look it up and see what the sell-through rate is. Next up, another consignment piece. Like I said, I sold a ton and surprisingly were some of our fastest sellers, which is great, probably because they're such great brands to consign. This is a Johnny Was piece. And this is a very tropical short sleeve, beautiful top in a size small. It was called the Zadie floral top. Even though this is resort wear, kind of vacation style, a lot of people are starting to take vacations, so I think that's why this one flipped so quickly. This one only took 11 days to sell. I listed it for $55 on eBay, sent out automatic offers to watchers using Nifty, and it sold for an offer to watcher of $46.65. All of this again is plus shipping, and the earnings were $35.17 after all of the fees. Next up, another really quick flip. This one only took 11 days to sell. This is an Abercrombie and Fitch muscle Henley shirt. I've talked about this a ton, but these Abercrombie muscle line shirts, especially Henleys, always perform well for me. This one, very Y2K style, so I included that. It was also a size extra large, which is going to increase the value. I don't charge a bunch for these, but they're great bread and butter, and I come across them very, very often. I listed this one for $25. It sold for my full asking price. And after everything, it was $18.46 for the earnings. Okay, next up, this is a great brand to look for in cashmere. It is Nadam Cashmere. And just in general, cashmere is a great seller, but specifically when you have extra details like a hood or maybe a full zip or really anything that's extra style, not just a plain crew neck cashmere, it's going to increase value and sell-through rate. I picked up this Nadam Cashmere hooded sweater for through a buyout that I did from another reseller. It did have multiple small holes, so we stitched those up and repaired them and made sure to note that under the condition like you can see here. Listed this one for $40. It sold for a full asking price of $40 in just 11 days, and the earnings were $29.96. Next up, I posted about this, so you may have already seen it. This was, I believe, my highest sale last week. It was also one of my fastest, which was crazy. This jacket sold in just 12 days. I actually thought it was quicker than that, but 12 days is still so quick. This was a Dennis Basso vintage, not a brand to memorize, vintage patchwork leather jacket. I actually found this at the bins, like in an old bin on the top of something. Everybody's walking by it. Everybody could see it. Nobody wanted it. I do not understand why, but this is why it's so important to never consider your competition as a reason that you're not going to make it, because everyone is sourcing different things than you. And so apparently nobody saw the value in this piece. I immediately snatched it up because leather, vintage, patchwork details, like super unique. I thought it was going to sell so quickly, and it did. I really keyworded this up. My full title was Vintage Dennis Basso Women's 90s Grunge Patchwork Leather Jacket, size medium, black, edgy. I listed this for $125 and was expecting best offers. However, somebody bought this outright for $125 in, again, just 12 days after being listed, and my order earnings was $100. Again, for something everyone else is throwing back. You can absolutely find pieces like this too if you constantly research and if you always keep your eye on the styles that are trending and the brands that are trending. Just looking for those indicators of potential quality will help you find all of the stuff that other people are passing on. All right, next up, this is another surprising one. This is an Old Navy vintage hoodie. This one, I don't know, I'm looking at it. It's not super exciting, but it had lots of factors that I look for in men's Y2K hoodies, such as it is thick, it is lined, it's true vintage Y2K label. It's also in a more neutral color like a blue, and it is a larger size, so size XXL. And it was lined, so it had thermal lining. For all of those reasons, even though it was Old Navy and super plain, we took a risk at the bins with this item. I listed it for $35, and it sold on an offer that Nifty makes automatically for around $30, and my order earnings was $29.15. Now, you might be hearing that's really close to the item price, and it's because yes, there were fees, but I made a little bit of money on shipping. I think I made an extra $6 or something like that on the shipping label, just because again, I'm getting that commercial discount and I'm not extending it. So pretty good order earnings on this one. And again, crazy that an Old Navy, old, pretty plain hoodie sold in just 13 days. All right, and the last one is another Depop sale. This one, again, kind of surprising how quickly it sold, just because of, the brand and it being very style-based. That's why I love pulling sales like this. And again, I'm going to pull it in some different ways, 2 different angles, so you can really do the same thing for your business and figure out what's working for you. But this was a really eye-opening exercise for me. This item sold in just 13 days. It is an H&M style-based sheer sleeveless top. I use keywords like dark romantic, whimsy goth, lace, gothic, Victorian, and ethereal. I listed for $29 to account for offers on Depop. sent out offers to watchers and it sold for $26.10, and my order earnings was $24.39.